Good evening and welcome to the stream, and that transition always is now seeming to take quite a long time, and I don't know why. Oh well, not especially important I don't suppose, but I'll put the music on as well. Good evening. Sorry about the delay to the start. I got back in late and just had some fish and chips for tea, so now I'm going to be able to continue with this, the Peyote stitch bracelet, and this is even Peyote, which means there's an even number of beads across the width of it. It's potentially the easiest one to do. There is odd peyote as well, which is quite useful. Apparently people really dislike doing that. Don't know why, it doesn't look that hard to me, but people seem to think it's really hard. We may find out one of these days, but I haven't worked out why yet. So I'm not getting a lot of these beads out, just a few, just because if we get raided by a pussycat, then I want to be able to pick them up fairly quickly. And don't always get the chance to do so. Now then, if I'm going to work at about there, I'll want to focus my camera. Will it see a needle at that distance? Focus is about there. Okay, right. So we just carry on from where we left off. I did some after the stream last night. It helped. I had a migraine headache, as you may recall, if you were watching last night, and it just helped a little bit, just to just relax back without having to think about the stream and watching chat and everything else. And although I felt sick for quite some time, it did pass, and I only had a normal headache this morning, and that too quickly was persuaded to go away, and hopefully I'm okay at the moment. I'm not going to get one tonight, so I hope everybody that's watching is okay. I am enjoying making this this peyote stitch, peyote bracelet. It's the first time I've ever done this, so this is brand new to me. I am building from a kit to make sure I had all that I needed to do this with, but I already know that I want to do some more of it, so I will be designing my own. And I already know that one of the designs I want to do is a poppy design, another bracelet for Mrs. Zaraganat, and the poppy of course in remembrance. I think that camera obviously needs to come up a little bit. If I just bring those a little bit nearer, then you'll be able to see what I'm doing. I'm just picking up beads there. You could almost do with this camera actually being over my shoulder for this one. Let's just see if I can reposition the camera. Now I'll do this live rather than going to a be right back screen, but oh, of course the camera is currently reversed, so just to help me, let me just set the camera the right way up when I find the camera. Oh, it's a global source. Webcam properties, flip. Okay, yeah, I want to do it that way. That makes sense. I need it to flip both horizontally and vertically. Now if I bring that down there and about there, so that when I'm sewing, which will be about here, you get to see what I see, more or less, which hopefully will give you a better view. It's always well, it is a problem of creative streaming, is to get a decent camera view so that you get to see what I can see. Sometimes, like for the jewellery, it's actually better for you to be on the other side of the desk. For this, it looks like it's better that you're looking, well, I was about to say over my shoulder, but you're not over my shoulder, you're just in front of it, but near enough, as they say. So Peyote is this sort of castellated structure, which you establish in the first 3 rows, and then from then on in this simple stuff, which is what I'm doing here, albeit with a pattern, you're just basically fitting a bead in between each one. So we've reached the end of the row, so I turn over, I pick up, in this case, a purple bead, and what I'm doing is taking the needle through the up, they call it an up bead, and these, so this is a down bead and this is an up bead, down up as I go up. So you go through the up bead, it's already there positioned for you just to put the needle through. And pull the thread through, keeping a reasonably even tension all the time. Surprisingly, as this came off the spool, it's a threaded. It's a threaded. Actually, that's probably accurate. It's described as braided. That's the word I'm looking for. Braided bead. They call it bead line. You know what? It's probably fishing line, and it's probably made by fishing by a fishing manufacturer, and they're just re-spooling it. I don't suspect there's anything particularly fancy about this, or that it's been made specially for beading. In fact, this is called Fireline, and I think obviously what they've done in this particular case with a kit is they have re-spooled something so they don't have to give you a full reel, but I'm equally thinking, I'm fairly sure Fireline, I seem to remember Fireline was when I did fishing, and if it is, then it's going to be considerably cheaper buying fishing thread than jewellery thread, even though I'm sure it'll be the same thing. This is what, 4-pound breaking strain. That's another thing that sort of makes me think it is fishing line, because why for jewellery purposes would they put the breaking strain? I mean, for fishing that obviously makes a difference, and it does when you're fishing, the breaking strain does tend to give you an indication of how thick the line is as well, and how stiff it would be. The thicker the line, or the more breaking strain the line's got, generally speaking, the thicker it will be, and potentially stiffer as well. Although it's a good many years since I last went fishing. Super Speedy, hello, good evening. Why the creepy music? To make people ask why the creepy music, it's just a mix. It's from Purple Planet, and it's just a mix. I've just got it playing randomly at the moment rather than in sequence. I don't actually know what it's playing at the moment. It's called Flight Path. It's just meant as like an ambient background, Super Speedy, just something so it's not silent when I shut up. You know, that does happen occasionally. And I know a lot of people don't like visiting a stream or staying on a stream where it's silent in between the broadcaster talking. So we reached the other end of the row. Turn over, rinse and repeat. This time it's purple. So I'm not even at this point in time following the pattern anymore, because it's a predictable pattern, and I'm able to predict it. A little bit tighter. It's getting a bit loose there. So I'm actually loving the texture of this, the feel of this bracelet. It's really thin and flexible, and it's actually flexible. Well, it sort of flexes a little bit in that direction, but it's really flexible in this direction, because these are just like big hinges or little hinges, and it feels really nice. And that's something I do like in jewellery making. I like pieces that, which is one part of the reason I like the chainmail, is because it just feels nice to hold and to play. Thank you very much. I am looking forward to doing the next one of these when I can do. Well, I'm going to do my own designs. Now that I've done this, I know what's needed, if you like, in terms of the line in beads and the needle. And of course I've got the needle, and I've got some line, and I have some beads. And I do intend to make more of these. And as I was saying earlier, I know Mrs. Arrogant Art would like something with poppies for remembrance. So I can do that with this. I just need to design the picture that goes on it, basically, because these are little pixels. So I've got free reign, and as I understand it, these particular beads, which are called Delica beads, they're a Japanese bead. I won't say they're available in hundreds of colours, but there's a heck of a lot of colours, and therefore I've got a real choice. I love colour. I'll rephrase that. I love appropriate use of colour. There are some colours I don't necessarily like to see too often. You know, bright fluorescent colours, for example, they're okay at times, but not always. The nice thing about this is, because it's one bead going through one bead, it sort of, you know, just falls into place, and then turn over and start again. it's not particularly complicated. It's not complicated at all. Deciding where a bead has to go or something like that. It's not like embroidery or something like that. This is just everything goes in its place automatically. And I love the shine. I mean, these are glass beads, so they're shiny as well. I know they can make them matte by basically a sandblasting technique, but I do like the sort of sparkly shine that's on them. Rianne DeWitt 2001, good evening, welcome to the studio this evening. Here you see me learning a new craft. Beading really, but peyote beading in this particular case. Or peyote stitch beading, I guess, is more accurate. This is the first time I've done this, and I'm making a bracelet. Unfortunately for this as a craft though, it is time consuming. Probably spent about an hour to an hour and a half on this yesterday. I mean, with the migraine headache I wasn't particularly working really fast or trying particularly hard, so I'm not quite sure how long I would have spent, but it sort of progresses fast but slowly. Thank you. And it's a lovely pattern is this one. I mean, I chose this particular kit specifically for this particular bracelet. I love the colours. I know one thing that did surprise me when I opened this yesterday was the size of these beads. I was expecting small. I don't think I was expecting this small. Now this is a kit which has actually come from America, which was confusing because I bought it from the UK, but I bought it on Amazon. And I bought it from apparently the UK arm of the company that I bought it from, but it was shipped from the States, so it took several days to arrive, which was a little disappointing. It's a kit from a company called Beadaholic, who I actually love the stuff that they do, and they do some very good. If you're at all interested in jewellery and want some ideas, then look up Beadaholic on YouTube, and they've got loads of video ideas for making jewellery. This was one of them, and it's there that I saw this for the first time. So, but I noticed them on Amazon UK as Beadaholic UK. And I thought that kit looks nice, so I bought it and to try. And unfortunately, it came from the States. So I've been that was so far, if you like, my only disappointment with this. The kit itself, though, was lovely. You got the beads, you got the needles, and there's 4 needles. I'll give you a full pack of needles, and probably more thread than I'll need for this. And I suspect more beads than I'll need for this. So, and the box it came in was almost like a nice presentation box. So, I'm half expecting I'd be able to take the label off the box fairly easily, and it's a presentation box then for the bracelet. So, I'm rather quite impressed with it. To be honest, you're here more for the swear than the jewellery. You probably have got a long wait then, because I very, very, very rarely swear super speedy. Unless you're actually talking about something else. It's just something I don't do. If generally speaking, if I'm going to swear, I say sugar. And as I put it, it's the sweetest swear word I know. Okay, Beandwit, nice to see you. Thank you very much for popping in again anyway. And look forward to seeing you again. We'll be doing other crafts in the future. This one, I've just finished the... not last night, the night before. Just finished the scraper board leopard. And so... due to circumstances, shall we say, I'm back doing a little bit of jewellery at the moment because I had these kits, and we'll be probably back into doing some pyrography soon, but we'll spend a little bit of time doing some jewellery for a while. Well, I do try and do that, don't I? I'm learning new stuff, and hopefully you guys are learning new stuff super speedy. Whether or not it's useful stuff to you guys, I'm not sure, but right, so that's what's next. Purple, it's white. So I happen to know it goes 3 3 3 3 3, so I've done 3 purple, so I'm back onto the white. And this is quite a relaxing sort of craft because it doesn't need a fantastic amount of concentration. You've got to get the right beads in the right place, of course, but and there are more complicated versions of this type of beading. I've been watching some of them, but that doesn't want to be purple, to be white. That wants to be purple. See if I can do this with the needle still attached. Just because the needle's a little bit awkward to thread. Yeah. So I'll take that white bead off, and I'll do that simply by passing the needle back through it the wrong way, or the way it came out. It'll pop off. I can put it down. So a simple mistake like that, I wasn't concentrating, you see. Having said I don't need to concentrate too much, except to put beads in the right place, I went and promptly put one in the wrong place. Am I going live tomorrow? Yes, I'll be live tomorrow as well. We can do it same time, about 8 o'clock. Give or take. I am doing stuff away from the house during the day at weekends, so I try and be back in time for 8 o'clock, but sometimes I'm a little bit late. I was this evening, for example, but I do try to be live around about 8 PM UK, which was would have been about 50 minutes ago if I hadn't been late. Thank you, Super Speedy. Having a nice group of people around in chat is the best thing. I'm guessing a fair few people tonight are busy, certainly in the UK, are busy watching Doctor Who. I don't know. I don't know what time it finished tonight. So we might see Fluffy Twiglet soon, who's probably been watching it. I may watch it after the stream, or I may save that until tomorrow. Now in theory doing this, and I've tried it a couple of times, what I should be able to do is pick up a bead. Yeah. Put it through here, and then before I pull the thread all the way through, I should be able to pick up another one and do it again like this. but it gets a little bit awkward trying to see where to put the needle. And it gets it really easy to get tangled like that. So I've already worked out that it's probably not a good idea to try and do more than one at once, although in theory it's possible. And there are actual techniques of bead weaving where you actually use a loom, and you put I can never remember which way the warps and the wefts are, but you string the loom and then you put beads through and beads across it, and weave backwards and forwards with the beads, and that builds really quickly. But there are some constraints to that technique. Most of the time it means it's got to go on a backing surface, for example. So you've got to put material, glue it to material, and then put that material on something. So not such a good thing for doing things like bracelets. Although I understand that you can manage it with certain techniques. Wow, I see. Better Twitch TV or... Oh, that's true. Better Twitch TV isn't running. I remember seeing 3D mention it last night. It's broken. A tweet. Better Twitch TV is broken at the moment for some reason. Eddie Fall Guy, good evening, welcome. How did the not sleepover go? I think that was last night, was it? $5.45. They didn't survive then. You know what? Even when I was younger, it's hard work trying to stay awake overnight. 29 hours. I don't know how you. Well, I kind of have, but it's really hard work staying awake. You must be just about dropping off as you sit down now. I remember back then when I was trying. I was actually involved in a radio amateur contest over 24 hours. So I know at one point I had to stand up in order not to fall asleep, and even then it was hard not to fall asleep stood up. You've been at school as well. Okay. But it was a bit weird. It's still the usual sort of, you got to go to bed, you got to go to sleep now. You got to stay up, you can't go to bed. I think if I'd been up 29 hours and gone to bed at 11 o'clock today, I don't think I'd be up. I can't actually remember how long I ended up sleeping for that time. Anybody wonders why this red sort of velvet is here, it's actually to stop the bees just sliding all over the table. From a bee's perspective, it's quite rough, so they tend to stay in one place. And it's a little bit springy, so I can push down a little bit to get the needle onto the bead, or the bead onto the needle. You did a 48 and fell at 38. I couldn't do it well. I say I couldn't do it. I actually have no idea whether I could, but it's not particularly something I'd like to attempt, to be honest. It's not so much a problem while you're doing it, and I know it's as long as you're doing something that's interesting and engaging, then it's a lot easier to stay awake. But the aftermath of it is sometimes rather hard to get over. Flip it over and carry on. So I've got white now. Well, yeah, it's something they like doing and it raises money. Well, seems like a good idea. Ah, of course. That's why the camera was where it. That's why the light was where it was. Push it up there. We'll see about getting some barn doors on this, on that camera that's in front of me. Or on the light, actually, I suppose. This one's a kit, Eddie. It's the first time I've done it, so it's a kit to make sure I have all the bits that I need to do it, and so therefore, yeah, any failures therefore on my part. But I'm enjoying doing this, so I will be doing more of it, which will be to my own design. Mind you, I do also like the design, so it's where it gets a bit awkward, because it's a fairly generic design, but it's potentially a copyright design as well. I wasn't sure whether I'd like doing this or not. I was kind of reasonably sure I would, but hence the kit to start with. Yeah, it does indeed, and of course the width of this is as wide as you want it to be, quite literally. Yes, there is a wide palette. I haven't looked at what the palette is, but I am given, shall we say, I'm given to understand the palette of colours is in sort of the at least two figures, you know, in the sort of 90 hundreds of colours type of thing. Lots and lots and lots of them anyway. I mean, I have seen offers, if you like, of beads, well, these Delica beads. You get things like sky colours, so blues, and you know, you get something like 50 packs. That's not 50 repeated colours, that's 50 separate colours of just the skies, and then you get the earth tones and the fire tones, all similar sized. So I gather there's lots. It could well be. You've got to. It is something that you can a little bit sort of switched off with. I mean, something like this, a repetitious pattern. If you're doing an art piece, you know, actual an image, then you'd have to concentrate a little bit more and read charts, of course. Yeah, if you you can get larger beads as well. But if you like working pixel art, then yeah, I can see this being enjoyable to do. I like working at pixel art, so. The only difficulty with it is, of course, this is probably about 2 hours work into it so far, Eddie, which makes it potentially difficult as a commercial prospect, or rather, that doesn't make it difficult, it just makes it expensive. I'm going to need some more beads out. I'm getting faster though as I'm doing this, so I'm not quite sure it's going to be yeah. Let's see if I can find it. Actually, the easiest way to find it would be to look at the order. Not that one, not that one, not that one, that one. Bubbles the Monkey, good evening and welcome. How's the self-portrait going? On that first day when I saw you doing it, you had your hair across the corner, around the side, and you were sort of more than a couple of times you were holding almost the same pose. And it just struck me very much like it was a self-portrait. Now I've just tied this in a knot somehow. Nowhere near done. You started a second one though, haven't you? So I noticed. Well, I'm trying something new as pixelized sort of way bubbles. I still haven't found something I want to do in the perler stuff yet, or the fuse beads yet. So I've still got that kit. Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Fair enough. But you know, it just I've just put the wrong colour bead there. As I say, it just struck me, just at the point I saw it, I thought, it just looks like you're doing a self-portrait. Now, if I'm lucky, this will work. If I'm not, I'll have to take the needle off. I'm lucky it worked. Sometimes if you try and back thread like I was doing there, if you don't go exactly the same way, you get underneath the thread that's already there, because there is one in there already, then you end up sort of, well, the only way to do it is to take the needle off and just pull the thread back through. I'm thinking I could do those same that same image in this stuff. I'm trying to get hold of that thread and it keeps going. Not that I particularly want to do the same image actually, but it is possible in this stuff. Mind you, talking about hair, I'll have to go to the barber soon, otherwise I'll start to have mine in my face. And then back to the white. I'm going to need some more white out in a minute. I could do with better glasses for this though. I'll maybe have to get one of those craft magnifiers that you wear on your head. I'll look silly, but at least I'll be able to see what I'm doing. we said earlier that this this red sort of velvet type material stops the beads going all over the place when you touch them. I've just flicked half of them around the place, but better than on the wood, I suppose. I was just thinking, the thought just crossed my mind then, there, Bubbles to Monkey. Wouldn't these beads, you normally get them in tubes, as you may know, but you can get mixed tubes with lots of colours in the same, well, bag rather than tube. You'd probably enjoy sorting them all that into different colours with your neighbour. And that's another row done. I've got only another 6.5 inches to go. I think there must be about an inch there. And whilst I've got that down, let's get a few more of these teal ones out. Yeah, I'm sure you will. Actually, I'm kind of half wondering whether I would, to be honest. As you mentioned, it's sort of like, well, partially communal activity, but that's a. So I just noticed that this the very first bead here was a little bit loose. So I'm just pulling the thread. Just slide that stop bead up as well. Still a bit loose, but there's nothing I can do about. Well, I can do something about it later on. I can sew that tail back in. It'll tighten it up a bit. Except for the size, yeah. This one kind of did surprise me as to the size. These aren't the smallest either. These are, I think these are 10.0, and there's an 11.0 which is slightly smaller. So these are a lot, and it's weird when I got this because it's a kit to start with, just to see whether I like it or not. And I was expecting small beads. I'm just not sure I was expecting this smaller bead. They kind of surprised me. Although having said which, although they're small, they're sort of very easy to get on the needle. I mean, the needle's quite thin as well, so. But you know, I'm not fiddling about trying to get the things on a needle all that much. They do thread very easily, and so I can imagine sorting them would be, you know, just a matter of just flipping it onto a needle, and then and you can sort of flip multiple ones on there, and then obviously just tip them off somewhere else. Now then, let's just make that a little bit longer. When I get to about 8 inches of thread left, then I'll sew it off and sew a new length in. How much in millimetres? I don't know. Where's my... I don't actually know what the measurement is. Where's my ruler gone? How can you lose a ruler? For that matter, how can you lose a 15-inch ruler? Very easily, apparently. they're about a millimetre, 1.2 to 1.5 millimeters long. And it looks like they're close to about 2 millimeters diameter. Actually, probably closer to 2 millimeters long. They're almost square, but tubular, if you know what I mean. So it looks like they're close to 2 millimeters either way. Coming out that way. And apparently, that squareness is what makes doing this a lot easier. Which is one reason that this particular type of beads, I think they're called Delica beads, are recommended for doing this thing. Yours are 2.5, so you're not that far off. I mean, what's the difference? A half a millimetre isn't a great deal. Not down at these this sort of size, I suppose. You never know. If you wanted to make pictures out of this stuff, Bubbles to Monkey, of course, you've already got the beads. There's no reason why you couldn't sew your beads. I know these are glass and what have you, but you could sew the fuse beads. They just have a different look to them. At least you'd be able to, yeah. If it was something that you thought might interest you, you only need sort of a needle and a bit of line, and you've already got beads to practice with, if nothing else. They do that sometimes. I'm not sure I understand that comment, Bubbles to Monkey. Unless you're talking about people doing it with those beads that you've got. Which is a thought that never crossed my mind, the fact that I've got a kit, well, the larger beads, but I do have a kit over there that I could have use some beads from. The really awkward thing about doing this is just making sure you don't tie yourself in a knot. I would say which the other awkward thing, sometimes to get the needle on threaded, but it would be easy at this point to come up on the wrong side of that and tie a knot. Oh yeah, it glow in the dark beads. I think I saw a reference to that somewhere, not so long ago. Oh yes, I was reading a forum post somewhere when they were talking about pony beads, shall we say? But they were talking about them in a way which was it was a fine art, shall we say? Sorry, a fine jewellery forum. So they were being a little bit snobbish about people who might use they described as pony beads. I need to do a permit. Oh, I thought for the minute then you were about to say you didn't know why you got it up. Now what have I just done there? I have put a stitch in without putting a bead on it. All this talk about how you don't really have to concentrate, and that's twice when I've more or less said the same thing where I've done something wrong. Okay, well that's different. And the green ones, obviously, the glow-in-the-dark ones, yeah. Well, that certainly is different. Don't think I'll be making any of those, though. Don't think Mrs. Aragonat would like it. Hello, Speed. Yeah, no, I thought. Well, I was about to say I assumed you were still super speedy, but that is an assumption. A 3D haunted house. Oh, yeah, fuse beads making the sides. That's a good job. You made that. Friendship, was it Friendship Cube earlier? So you got practice of making 3D stuff now. Haunted house, though. What you need it now then is a bit of electronics to make it sort of lights flash inside and make the odd spooky noise. Companion cube, that's what it was, wasn't it? Companion cube. Well, it's an interesting thought because I have wondered whether this would be structurally able to do certain things with, because I mean, whilst it is sort of really flexible in that direction there, it's not so much in that, and you get the castellation at the side, so moving something at 90 degrees for a corner shouldn't be too difficult. That's why I was just trying to stand it up then. It does sort of stand up quite well. So it's off camera, isn't it? I guess it wouldn't, well, I was about to say I'm guessing it wouldn't support much weight, but it actually is. Bring my beads a bit closer. Yeah. I like pretty things like this. A bit of a magpie, really, and I like detail. I love detail in images and things, and this sort of I guess plays to both the pretty things, and the nice colours, and the detail. But I also enjoy physically making things, which is so given the given things like a computer art or physical art, I tend to go for the I'll get get the airbrush out or something like that rather than do it on screen. But except for maybe sort of clay sculpting, that one I'd like to try on screen rather than real life. This isn't fantastic. I know it looks intricate, but it kind of isn't. I mean, I'm only working with 3 colours, and yeah, that's right. And they're in a geometric pattern, so. I guess when I'm doing things like the scraper board or whatever, I am trying to do fine scratches and details and things, so I suppose that could be considered intricate. Yeah, you're probably right, I suppose, in a way, Captain Dobia, because I was just thinking then about electronics, and that gets quite intricate. Now I'm going to change threads in a minute, but I'm going to get about halfway down here before I do. Yeah, I'm getting, just pull that out a bit and we'll change threads. No, I don't want green there, I want purple. So we'll sew these purple, and I'll tie off this thread and start a new one. So tying off a thread, basically I pick up the thread from, that's between, I'm trying to do this with glasses that I can't actually, because I'm using glasses, I can't actually see this too well. Is that where I want? No, I want that one. So I go there between the beads. That should allow me to actually tie a knot. And that knot disappears between the beads, basically. And then what I do is feed the needle in and go several beads down. There will do, like that. And from that same bead, change direction, go several beads, come out somewhere like that, and then that pops in and disappears. And basically that's it. What I now do what I can do with that is get a scalpel, because I haven't got a pair of scissors handy, and I pull it tight. I pull it tight because that way, and hold it down with the scalpel, but then if I cut this off, because I pulled it tight, it springs back inside and you can't feel it. Tools and material, yeah. Well, pyrography of the train when you first joined. Well, yes, that was the first pyrography I did on stream. So that was after the carving. So I suppose yes, they got smaller, and then yeah, the scraper, punchcraft. Yeah, you're probably right actually, Captain Derby. You're probably right. It is getting small. Things are getting smaller. Now then, I want some more thread. So here's the. Now that I've got, well, it's easy if I just take that off. Let me just take the. That just stops the thread unravelling itself. I actually want about 2 arm lengths. Don't really want much more than that because it gets a bit awkward to handle long threads, and I haven't had a lot of practice. This stuff is easier actually to handle in embroidery thread. For things like cross stitching, long thread, much more than about 6 feet of thread, and it gets pretty awkward to handle. So I don't know if this is better or worse, but with it being well, it's not monofilament, it's braided line. But for fishing, for example, where it would be monofilament rather than braid. Long lines obviously are quite easy to handle. Let me just throw that bit away. I don't want cats trying to eat it or anything. So just make sure it goes in the bin. Now then, the bit that isn't my favourite part of this, although it's better than trying to do it with some other threads. I do have a needle threader somewhere. I'm not sure it would go through these needles though. There we go. That kind of surprised me, as it did the first time I did it, how easy it is. But once the thread has frayed a little, is the easiest way of describing it, that actually gets really quite hard to do. Okay, Eddie Frog guy, have a good evening, and see you later. A 4 AM wake up call. Only time I have a 4 AM wake up call is when I'm going on holiday. Now then, essentially all I do with this is just start somewhere, feed it in, and what I have to do is get up to that bead there, and come out of that in that direction to carry on. Is it that one? No. That one. I'm going to come out of that bead there to carry on. So I just start somewhere fairly random, like there. And it's really friction that holds the thread in place. And I've got a tail there. I'll leave that tail for the minute just so I can hold on to it. Now then, I want to be able to see what I'm doing. Shiny thread on shiny beads. not the easiest of things to see through. So I'm going basically diagonally, and by going diagonally I can actually get through quite a few beads. Now then, where are you going? Okay, let's get rid of that, get that out the tail. And this should vanish. There it has. Now I can still pull this through at the moment, but once so I've got a few beads on there, I won't be able to do that. But for the minute, I'll just keep hold of it. Now then, I've got this right, because what I just do there is go through those two beads, and I'm in a position now to pick up my next bead in sequence, if this lot doesn't get in a tangle. Which it almost has there. Now, I don't want it to form a knot, because if it forms a knot it gets, like fishing line, it forms a weak point if that happens. And I'm assuming this is like fishing line. There we go. And now I can pull that quite hard, and it takes a bit of strength, if you like, to get it to come through. Oh dear, sorry. That's the problem with working with a close-up camera. I tend to be off screen, so if I move the camera, I seem to have moved over a little bit from when I positioned the camera earlier. So thank you for letting me know, Captain Derby. It wasn't fantastically important, but I've just feeding the needle through the beading that I've already done, just to anchor the thread. And it is just, as I was saying, it is mainly friction that holds it in place. If when I've got sufficiently far enough, I feel that you see, I'm getting a little kink in the line there. If I get far enough in this and I feel like it still is a bit loose, I can actually sew that in place. There's just enough thread there. In fact, I'll pull a bit back to sew that in. It's at this point where you don't want a lot of things on your desk, loose things on your desk, because if you're working on your desk, because 6 feet of thread gets wrapped around lots of stuff if you're not careful. I wonder how many miles it actually adds up to, because 6 feet of thread, I keep pulling 6 feet of thread through this, and if every bead I pull, like here, 6 feet of thread, okay, I suppose the next bead it's slightly less, and it's slightly less, and so on, but 6 feet at a time, you know, I've just probably pulled the equivalent of about 100 feet of thread through. By the time I've done that on a full bracelet, I wonder just how much mileage I've pulled. Spack Knifles PT, good evening, welcome back to the stream this evening. Nice to see you back. I trust you are doing well. I'm doing the right colour, aren't I? Yeah, I am. No, I'm doing the wrong colour there. I want that colour. Yes, thank you very much. For about an hour after I know I finished a bit early yesterday. For about an hour after the stream yesterday, I was still feeling sick, and then it started to pass. Having taken the medication about halfway through the stream, it generally takes about an hour to 2 hours for it to work on me, and it started to pass. But I still had a small headache this morning. But again, that's gone now, so I am feeling much better. Thank you very much. One of the things I have to be careful of during the day is to make sure I keep drinking or have enough drink, not to be dehydrated. Dehydration, I was feeling a little bit tired as well yesterday, and the two together, being warm, dehydrated and tired, and now that's three. Usually it's picked two out of those three, is a migraine trigger, so I have to remember, keep drinking, keep cool, keep calm and carry on. I'll tell you what though, this is quite a good distraction from migraine. For me, if I have a migraine, if I can do something, and sometimes it's really hard when you're feeling sort of really queasy and sick, or sometimes it affects my vision as well. But if you can do something, it generally helps a lot, because if you can distract your brain forgets it's in pain, and it goes away a lot quicker or easier. So I was doing this for a little while afterwards, and it's really calming and relaxing. Not that it isn't when I'm streaming, but it's when you're streaming, you're having to think of all the things at the same time. Like, are my hands still on screen, and has anybody said anything in chat? Keep having to remember to look up and things like that. That's the purple. We're back onto the green. Yeah. So this isn't. Well, this is progressing quite fast, but not really very fast. Given that this is intended to be a 7.5-inch bracelet when it's done. The clasp, of course, does take about half an inch, so 7 inches of beading. No, I don't want that colour. I want that colour. And I gather for an experienced beader, this takes about 4 hours. So I guess I'm not an experienced beader, which is true. But I'm kind of wondering what they do faster. Tell you what, it's great exercise for your arm, is this, by the way. And it's the same with cross stitch, because the easiest way to pull the thread through, I found, is just to stretch your arm out. But of course, you're repeatedly stretching your arm out. One of the things you can do with this as well, stitch wise, and I don't think you probably do it with, make it this way, but it can be made into a tube, because they if you imagine, I mean, this is at the moment, if you imagine, the castellations go together, so if you can sew this actually into a tube, and you can create tubes with it. Smaller ones probably are better for freestanding, but you can also wrap this around something, so you could actually sort of make a tubular thing. So if I wanted to, I could sort of, make a tube cozy, whatever you cover, whatever for the tubes, to wrap round things. So you can do this round anything really. And if you did it round, for example, like a fairly thick cord, you could make handles for bags and things by wrapping, doing what they call circular peyote, and just keep wrapping it round a cord, so you can make fancy cords as well. Which for an artist and jewellery designer, which I guess is what I am, both, it's quite an exciting thing to be able to do stuff like that. Quite what I'd use it for, I'm not sure. The smaller stuff, standalone, maybe I might find a use for, but there again, I have a habit of just doing some of these things just because I like the idea of trying it, or like with the chainmail, with the experimentation that I was doing. Just try it, just see if it works in a particular size of ring or what have you. And so I'm quite likely to do something similar, like create a tube peyote, just to see what it's like. What I have I have seen some designs with some dark colours. I won't say black, but sort of almost black, dark browns, dark golds, which look, like well, they look absolutely fantastic, and I suppose the sort of thing that goes with the classic cocktail dress would look absolutely amazing. Now the friction now is such that I could pull this until it breaks, and I actually wouldn't be able to pull that thread out. In theory I could pull it enough as well, it's only £4 breaking strength. And I know I can break that. So keep it tensioned really, so we keep the actual pattern and we don't see gaps opening up. Before, for various members of the family have had jewellery, which has been sort of threaded jewellery, but necklaces and things like that, beads threaded on necklaces and classic pearl necklaces, that sort of thing, and they've broken, and when you look at them, they kind of look like they'd be really complex to repair if you knew how to do it. And yet now that I'm doing this, and it's kind of like I'm now looking back on that and going, what was so awkward, what was so hard about maybe doing that and just rethreading them? It's amazing once you've learnt the skill. You look back and go, how could I not have known how to do that? one thing you do have to be careful is you don't get like that. I thought I had. I didn't see it because this line is so colourless, and it's just a thread that's got caught around there, and I didn't see it. And of course, if you weave 2 or 3 rows in and then you find it, well, it's just sat there, and it would have been potentially impossible. I'd have had to have unwound it all to take that out. So it is worth just making sure you don't miss things like that occasionally. If it had been in sort of this one, in this bit of the row, and I started coming back and so I could have flipped it off and just pulled quite hard, and it would have come back into position. But got much further and I'd have been stuffed. I'd have had to undo the threading. So there's no sort of cheaty way of fixing a mistake in this. It's the only way of fixing a mistake is the long way. Undo it all the way back to the mistake and start again. I'm not even sure whether it would be possible to start from the start and work forward to a mistake, because of things like the tied off threads and things. It might well be that you can only work from the end backwards. You guys hypnotised yet by the flashing of the beads and the calming music going on in the background? Actually, daft as it sounds, I actually have a hypnotism course sat behind me, because that's another thing I'm kind of interested in, is hypnotism. And I have a course behind me which I need to at some point learn, or at least read. So that's what we call a coincidental thought. But there again, I guess if this has successfully hypnotized all you guys, then maybe now's the time to go. Look into my eyes, go to the web shop, buy everything. Did it work? Oh dear. I hesitate to say I wish it was true, but it's the way you've been mesmerised by it, yeah. No. I actually wouldn't particularly like it if I had hypnotised you into doing it. That would not be, well, for a start, it wouldn't be ethical to say the least, but it's not something I think I'd like to have happened. If people want to buy something, I want it to be of their own free will. I guess if there's anybody watching, on a serious note, or serious-ish note, if there's anybody watching that isn't aware that I do have a shop on Etsy, and as soon as I can get my website up and running, I'll have one on the website as well, where you can buy some of the chainmail jewellery that I've been making, and maybe some of this stuff that you're seeing here will get on there soon when I can do my own designs. And yeah, feel free to check it out. The URL is on the screen, and Moobot I think occasionally drops it into to chat, and yeah, pass it on, family and friends. I of course think there's some fantastic stuff there. You of course may think completely differently, but yeah, potentially some nice Christmas gifts there. They're hopefully not too expensive. They're all handmade. And potentially you could even get to see it, if you wanted one, could get to see it made on stream for yourself. See your own piece made. As I say, feel free to pass it on. Okay, it is 10 o'clock, but since I started a bit late, and I'm quite enjoying doing this, I am going to carry on for a bit longer, but I need some more purple beads out. I could dump the lot out, but I'd only have to put them away again. I'll get some more of these aqua ones out at the same time. I love the colours, I love the sparkle effect as well. I'm wondering how much of this we've done. 1.5 inches. Oh. Oh, that's not bad. In about 3 hours, it's about ½ an inch an hour. That's good to know. It's useful to know a metric. So a 7-inch bracelet is about 4 hours. No, it's not. 1.5 inches is taking about 3 hours. So it's ½ an inch an hour. So it'll be about 14 hours. Well, that's a bit. Maybe I should see if I can get a bit faster. Mind you, Mrs. Zaragana has made the suggestion that I probably will be able to do some of these things faster if I wasn't talking all the time. I'm not so sure. Although I definitely think I'm faster than when I started. Come on, beads, you are going to go on this needle whether you want to or not. There we go. Now I get 2 or 3 on the needle at the same time. Yeah. No, I only want 1 bead, thank you. You have to make sure you go through just the one, not accidentally go down and pick up a second one, because then the needle's in the wrong place. This could get a bit more complicated if I was actually trying to read a chart and do a complex picture. And would require a bit more concentration than I'm putting into it now. Because that's the same with cross stitch. Actually reading the chart and keeping track of where you are on it. Cross stitch isn't as bad as this would be because, as you've noticed, the half and half. So if you know, this bead is half as high as that, you know, halfway up that bead. So you've got sort of like you know, like a 5. What am I trying to say? Each bead is diagonally across. They're not in line with each other. So when you're reading a chart, it's kind of like. Where's the chart? I'll show you the chart. Where's the chart? So when you're reading, if you're trying to read a line, you read. Let's say you read here. You then that's your next bead and that's your next bead. But when your next row is this one, not that one. It's this one. So you kind of got to read in half steps for this, which is quite awkward. If it was like a cross stitch or there is another type of peyote where they're in line with each other that I can't remember the name of. That's a bit easier because you can just follow a row a lot easier than you can on here. Your eyes tend to want to go that way. It's quite hard to follow a row across. So something like that, probably end up with a ruler on the chart or something like that to help you follow it in the correct way. Right, purple again. I have no idea how that bead got on. You sometimes just put your needle down in the pile of beads and a bead just magically appears. Now that you see was pulling off, there's quite a large gap there, so all I'm going to do is just basically pull that a bit tighter and then it pulls the thread and it doesn't open up quite so much. I've got cat hairs floating around my nose somewhere. Oh, we've hit the end of the playlist, have we? No, apparently we haven't. Just a long pause. I don't actually know if it'll restart, so. Oh dear, random thoughts that occur. I was just thinking then, when I hypnotise all you guys to go and buy everything on the store, I've omitted to tell you to pay at the same time. Always forget something, yeah? Okay, so we start white again on this side in a moment with 2 of the turnaround. And this time I remembered I don't want to put a white on, I've got to carry on with the purple. Okay. Now I switch to the white and then back to the purple. So it's a fairly simple pattern. They can get more complicated patterns. But the only thing that's more complicated about a more complicated pattern is just that you have to keep reading the chart to see what colour comes next. In practice, actually doing it is no more complicated than this. It doesn't matter if there's 100 colours involved or just 1 or 2 like I'm using, or 3 that I'm using here. I suppose that's one of the nice things about this. You can get more complicated. You can do odd count, peyote as they call it, because that way, one thing about this, because this is even, what that means is quite literally there's an even number of beads across the row. But what that means is if you want something to be perfectly centered in the row, like you want to do a line right down the middle, or a diamond for example in the middle, it wouldn't be in the middle. It would be offset slightly to one side. So you can do, instead of even count peyote, which is what this is, you can do odd count. So there's an odd number of beads on a row. That way, because it's an odd number, you've got one in the middle. So designs that require something to be in the middle, you'd be using odd count. I can't actually remember why I was saying that, but in theory, I mean, a lot of people apparently find odd count to be more difficult. I can't actually see why. Green. But other than that, it's putting a complex design on something like this seems like a piece of cake. It's just, as I say, more time consuming to read a chart. So maybe the next one, I say, well, the next one is possibly going to be some poppies. And that will be my design. Then maybe, I don't know, some snowmen for Christmas. Some hearts or roses for Valentine's, perhaps. Actually, I could do flags as well with this, because the design, pixel-based design, it would be relatively easy to do things like flag designs. So for me, the Union flag would be an easy one to do, or easy-ish one to do, I suppose. There will be some slightly awkward bits about it, but is it the sort of thing anybody would be interested in? A bracelet with a flag on it, or a flag design, I suppose, for your own nationality. I guess if I was going to do mine, I should really do the white rose of Yorkshire rather than the Union flag or the St George's Cross. You lot have all gone quiet, haven't you? I guess the music and the flashing needle have done their job. And now it's time to rule the world. One reason why I didn't want to use, because it had been suggested that I should use felt for this. One reason I didn't want to use felt is felt is actually a load of matted fibre basically, and I'm going to have to get the needle caught in it quite a lot. Same with the jump rings for chainmail. Now that I've found this piece of a bit of scrap material, but it's like a velvet type material, I'll try doing that, doing it on there, because it's got a little bit of give, which makes it a bit easier to pick up things with the pliers as well. And I didn't want to use felt for that either, for the same reason. The rings have a cut edge, which would have a tendency to get caught in the fibres. Moobot's gone to sleep again. think actually somebody on stream described this music as spa music, and they're rather accurate, I think. I know some bits of it are a little bit more energetic than that, but that sort of music that's just been playing is very much like the plain spas. Maybe not this that's coming up now, but okay, Super Speedy, good evening. Thank you very much for dropping in. Yes, don't worry about lurking, not a problem. Have a good evening. Hope I'll see you again in the future. And thank you for dropping in and contributing. I will be stopping in about 5 minutes anyway, so. Thank you very much for that, Super Speedy. Kisuken, thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say so. I thought I'd got the thread wrapped around that bead just then, but apparently not. It's hard to see the thread when it's against the shiny beads, which of course is the idea. So you don't see the thread, but when you're sewing it like this, it sometimes gets wrapped around, and you don't quite see it, like there. Yeah. Something is awry. Yep. Okay. So what's that? And where's that come from? I've got a thread on the outside here. and it shouldn't be there. I'm trying to work out is where it's from, and is it just wrapped? Yeah, hopefully it's just wrapped around. Yeah, it is. That's what happens sometimes. Now, luckily, I can fix it. I've got to be in just its yeah. It had got wrapped. Thread had got wrapped around, so now it's not tight. As you can see, it's loose. So the way in which I can fix that is to pull it tight there, because I haven't gone back over it. I can pull that tight. Actually, it's the other way. I'll try and pick up the one at this end. See if I can pick the thread up at this end and pull it back through. Yeah, friction makes this quite hard, but there we go. I've just managed to pull it from that end. Now I can pull this one tight like that. Luckily, if I'd gone much further, I'd have had to unravel it and basically rethread a couple of more rows of beads. And I just sort the needle back out. So luckily I spotted it, and I spotted it because the bead actually wasn't sitting in the right position. It was sitting at an odd angle. But at the point where I put that through there, I probably would have locked it into place, and I may not have been able to retension it like I did. I'm gradually working my way off the frame again, aren't I? Okay, I think we'll complete this row and then that'll be it for the stream tonight. The problem is, and that's done the same thing again. And the problem is this last couple of rows now are a bit loose because I've had to pull them out and pull the thread back, and so I just got to make sure I keep these things cinched up a little bit as I work through. Afterwards, once this is done, one of the things I can do is just work the bracelet a little bit, work it backwards and forwards, by which I mean bend it in a few different directions. And what that will do is just redistribute the line a little bit through all of the beads, and it'll tighten up some areas, loosen off some other areas where I've been a little bit inconsistent in pressure, or I've had to, like there, repull the thread through. I'm gradually learning sort of little tricks or tips. Things like just holding the bead like that, so that the thread doesn't get wrapped around things, like the other end of the bracelet. By putting my sort of hand there, it keeps the thread away from catching, which of course makes things slightly quicker. And with this, speed is part of the equation. Right, I may do a little bit more off stream, but I think that's it for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching. And that's what we've managed to do. You can see little gaps like that just by my thumbnails there, which is just where tension's a little bit looser. It lets little gaps in, and then it's tighter up here. I should be able to just sort of wiggle it around a little bit, and they'll gradually sort of straighten out a little bit, but it's a lovely and tactile is this. I do love that. So yeah, thank you everybody. Anybody who's watching that isn't aware, and why you might not be, I'm not sure, because there's an advert just there. Just remind you about the chainmail shop. For chainmail, it doesn't have chainmail, it has jewellery in it. So if you haven't looked, I would recommend, wouldn't I? It's my shop, you're checking it out. But there's some lovely jewellery in there, even if you just like looking at the pictures, or looking for presents for family and friends at Christmas. Maybe that's a good idea. Take a look anyway, pass it on, pass the link on. I'm quite happy for anybody to do that. It will help maintain the stream, any of that stuff that I sell. So I would say it goes to a relatively good cause. I think I'm good. I'm not naughty anyway. Anybody who's watching that isn't following, then of course I encourage you to do so. Then you'll get notification like tomorrow when I go live doing more of this lovely stuff. If you don't want to follow but would like the notification, there is always Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at @ZaragonArt. That details is below the stream window in case you come back later and have forgotten what it is. Or they'll be on the end plate in a moment as well, in case you're not sure how to type it. If you just want to catch me tomorrow, we're still on British Summer Time, so it'll be 8 PM UK British Summer Time, 1900 hours UTC or GMT, whichever you prefer. Of about 2.5 hours ago, it was 8 o'clock, so whatever time zone you're in, do a bit of maths. I heard somebody asking the question, why do we call it maths in the UK and in the States it's math? I think it's more to do with the fact that we call it mathematics, plural, so maths makes sense. I don't know. Anyway, thank you all for watching. It has been fun. Bye bye until tomorrow. Hope to see you all in the studio again tomorrow. We'll be doing some more of this. And thank you all for watching. Have a good evening.